No. So I do want you to write that. Let's look at the next section. So this is for section B, okay? So section C, let's look at what they're asking for. Here it says, write each of the numbers as a percentage. No work here, all right? This is moving a decimal place to the right 2 places. End of story, right? So for C here, for section C, number 1, you could go right to 72%. Everybody feel comfortable with that? Okay, there's no work involved there.
Why should work on that one if it was like number 10 where you're doing a fraction, mixed fraction?
Yeah, if it's a mixed fraction and you want to put it first in its decimal equivalent, that's fine, but I'll take the final answer. I'm okay with that. Because many of us probably know that 1 1/4 is 1.25. And so just move it, it's 125%. Does that make sense? Yes.
Should we do the same thing in section B, like where they put 3 1/2? Can we just
go 3.5 right away? Yes. Yeah, you can. Yeah, especially these you know, ones that are real easy to do. No problem. We are going to skip section E. All right. This is writing the percentages as fractions. We're going to skip that section. Don't worry about that. All that is those numbers over 100, right? So we're not going to worry about that. But the next one, section F, I do want you to solve for. 3 is blank percent of 5. Okay? So to do that, like number 1 right here for section F, section F, number 1, it says 3 is blank percent of 5. Oops, of 5. Okay, well, I need to find a percentage, right? My percentage is always going to be something, and it's going to be my number over 100 to set it up as the proportion, okay? So this is something of 5. So where would I put the 5 and where would I put the 1.3? Is it 3? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, because it's number 1. It's number 1. Sorry, I should have done that. So 3 is what percentage of 5? Where am I going to put the 3 on the left-hand side? Top or bottom? Top. Where am I going to put my 5? Bottom. And this is going to be, we'll call it X. That's going to be my X percent, right? Okay. So now I can do that cross-multiplying. 300 is equal to 5X. Okay? Divide by 5 on both sides. X is equal to, oh, we actually should do it like this. 60 is equal to X, right? So 3 is 60% of 5. Okay?
If you want us to show all the work on F, or no?
You know what? I'm not going to make you.
Okay, then I don't think we do everything.
You don't have to redo everything. No, these, because they ask all different ways. Sometimes it's number 3 says 25% of what number is 1.4. That's fine.
section F's final answer?
So you can just do final answer for section F. That's fine. Okay? Now, something I want you to remind you of is, for each one of these, remember, the odd answers are in the back. So even though you're assigned in these sections all of the problems, make sure you're on the right track and peek in the back at the answers and make sure that those are correct. You should get at least half of them right then, right? Okay? So so they're there, and I pick the odds and I incorporate those by design. I try to do most of them that way. So any questions on those sections, what's expected for each one? So really the only one I want to see the work for is section B. Does that sound fair? Okay.
So G, you don't.
Well, we haven't gotten a G yet. I was asking about those sections. We got a section G here, right? And these are our problems, right? I just meant of the ones that we had just gone over. So section G is the last one. These are going to be our application or our word problems. This is where you're now going to be having a story problem basically and setting it up and pulling out the things we need. Now each one of these are a little bit different as well. So it says here the extruded steel rods shrink 12% in cooling from furnace temperature to room temperature. If the standard tie rod is 34 inches exactly when it is formed, how long will it be after cooling? Okay, so it's 34 inches long. It's going to be 12% shorter after cooling. What is that going to be? So how would you set that up? Let's see, hold on. Yeah, so if we go to G, okay, section G, problem number 1 here, we're given 12%, it's basically shrinkage, right? Okay, as it cools, our starting length, 34 inches, and this is when it's hot, when it's made, right? And we want to know how long will it be when it's done, okay? So this is kind of like that net price thing, right? This is where, okay, we're starting with this value and it's going to get smaller by this percentage. Kind of like you're starting with a list price and you're going to get smaller by a discount. Does that make sense? So you can take then, this is the, we're going to say what is the net is going to be equal to, I'll say net length maybe. This isn't a standard equation, we're just using this. So the net length or the final length is going to be equal to the original length minus the discount or the shrinkage, right? Okay, so the shrinkage amount is going to come from taking the 12% times 34, right? That's going to be how much it's actually going to shrink. So if I take 34 inches then times 0.12, because that's our decimal equivalent of 12%, right? So if we take 34 times 0.2, or 0.12, we're going to get 4.08 inches, right? Now, our original length was 34 inches, so we're going to put that in there. So the final, or the net length, is going to be 34 minus 4.08 inches. Everybody agree? Okay, so net length, so our final length is going to be 34 minus 4.08. So we're going to get, whoops, 34 minus 4.08. 29.92 inches is going to be equal to the net length, or you can call that final length. Okay. Now, as you know, a lot of different processes, when parts come off, they're going to be warm, and you have to deal with shrinkage and how something is going to, actually be in its final form when it's at room temperature. So this is kind of a preview of that type of an exercise. Now, is there a shorter way we could do this? How could we do it?
Multiply it by the amount that's remaining.
Yeah. So if we know that 12% is how much it shrinks, its final amount is going to be the leftover, right? So we could do this in one step, kind of that way I shared with you, where, okay, if we take 100 minus 12, the 12%, how much is left over? Is it 88%, right? 88% is 0.88, right, in decimal equivalents. So if we go right to 34 times 0.88, we also get, so 34 times 0.88, we also get 29.92 inches as well. It might be a good check even in the end to see if your answers come out. Does everybody kind of see both ways of doing that? So whether you do it one way or the other, I do want to kind of see how did you set this up. So show me some work here. I'm not going to say minimally because each one of these are going to be a little bit different, but just kind of show me how you're doing it. That way, if it isn't right, I can kind of follow where you may have gone wrong and help you correct that.
So you can just kind of sketch it out here.
I'm okay with that too, yeah. Yeah. You don't need to take a half a page like I did.
Yeah.
All right. But take more than one line, please. Maybe 2 or 3, yeah. That's fine, that's fine. So does everybody feel comfortable? Because the word problems now, each one is just going to be a little bit different take on it, okay? So some people might write a little bit more than others on those, okay? And that's okay.
I can't read.
So questions about your homework and what's due. So for next week, kind of peeking back at our Blackboard page, and I'm going to look at our calendar. Get there. On the 28th, we're going to have our first quiz on Chapter 4, what we just went over. So it's going to be the ratios, proportions, and percentages. The first thing I'm going to ask when we get to class is, what questions do you have on the homework? Okay? So make sure that you have those. If you feel good and you feel confident, like I said, the odds are in the back of the book by design. I try to pick as many as I can of the odds. I know in the story problems there's some evens, but that's because of the type of problems that they were. I try to pick, you know, rather than the life skill or the retail merchandising ones, I want you guys to do things that are metalworking, maybe carpentry in some cases, sheet metal, things like that. Applications of things that you're going to be doing, okay? Those might be the even numbers. But check the odd ones to make sure you're on the right track, okay? So you should have a pretty good idea how you're doing. Chapter 4 homework is due then, next week, okay? And then we're going to be starting, once we get done with the quiz, the Chapter 5 stuff that we have. It is not a timed test by any means, okay? Remember, open book, open note, all right? What I would anticipate is you're going to have your homework, you know, available. Like I said, extra credit if you do the pre-test. Now let's peek there, what you need to do. You don't have to do anything we didn't go over. So if we look at the very beginning of that chapter, a nice way to review for the quiz is going to be doing this pre-test. The answers for this pre-test are in the back of the book, okay? Yeah, answers for these previews are given in the appendix in the back of the book. So if we look here, let me go back. If we look here on page 177, full screen quick. Okay. You'll notice that you can calculate the ratio. So number 1 you can do. Number 2 is a proportion, solving for an unknown. You can do number 2. Here's a word problem. It's a landscaping problem. It's fine. We'll do number 3 as well. Doesn't hurt. You can do the drafting problem and the manufacturing problem. Okay? Then number 4, you can do all of those, A, B, C, and D, writing as percentages the numbers there. Then number 5, write the percentages as decimals and or as a fraction. When they say as a fraction, remember it's just the number over 100. Okay? Then the next one, number 6, it says solve for the percentages here. So it looks like A you can do, B you can do, C you can do, and D you can do, okay? You can cross off E. You don't have to do that one. We didn't do those types of problems. F you can do, G you can do, and then up at the top of the other page, H and I. So the only one I'm crossing off is E of part 6 because we explicitly skipped over that in the chapter. So you don't have to worry about that. So for an extra credit point, okay, so an extra credit equals plus 1 point on your quiz, you're going to attach this pre-test, if you would, or the preview to your quiz, and then you'll by doing that, it's a nice review, you'll get an extra credit point. If you don't do it, it's no penalty. It doesn't take points off your quiz. It's just that you don't get the extra credit point. Okay? And you'll hand that in with the quiz. All right? Any questions about that? So open book, open note, for, you know, kind of organize the stuff when you get here. I expect by the homework that we've done, it's due. This stuff is going to be, you know, you're going to know how to do these. Shouldn't take real long. I don't anticipate the quiz being any more than a half hour, 45 minutes. All right? It's not 50 problems, I promise you. Okay? It's probably 1 in each one of the sections that we went over. Okay? 1 or 2 maybe. Okay? And then obviously we focus on making sure that we can apply this to application problems, I'll call them. There's a couple story problems at the end as well. Okay?